We've arrived at the Nürburgring, just got to the house and unpacked, but Misha's called, he said the track's clear, so let's get out for a lap. Misha's with us and we've introduced him to the FL5. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Okay, exciting.
Here we go.
Here we go. Just grabbing the tires and brakes. Nitron swallowing the curbs like it's nothing. Everyone decided to do the last lap of the day or something. Nice.
No.
There's always a bigger fish in the sea. Well, let's see if we're gonna use the 6th gear like the record bar. There is no reason of switching to the 6th. Nope. That's all I wanted to know. Going to the gas station and see if that's the issue.
I know the FK8 suffered from a bit in the past.
Yeah, it's in the corners, then it's just like Yeah, no, it's completely dead. Oh, check engine. Hello? Oh, the temperature is also quite high.
Yeah. I think that might be one of the reasons why it got off. It went up to like 149 or 50.
Okay, well that's a bit a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's the best lap I've ever been on.
Well, thank you. I'm happy you enjoyed.
Yeah.
It was lots of fun until it did.
The first lap with Misha was an experience to say the least. I honestly felt like a rag doll being thrown around in the car. But for the most part of the lap, it went very well. Unfortunately, fuel surge came back to bite us, ultimately bringing an engine light on for an underboost condition. For the rest of the evening we spent trackside, walking around a few corners, just viewing some of the cars that were out on track. We spotted quite a few Hondas and enough Porsches to last a lifetime. If you've seen our first video of our first few laps of Misha, you may have noticed the temperature's getting extremely high. Fortunately for us, we have a few friends at the Nürburgring, and we popped down to Miltech, who allowed us to borrow a ramp and give the car a quick check over and oil change before we got back out on the second day for more laps. After seeing all the Type Rs out on track last night, we thought we'd get out early and get a couple of laps in together. Me and Tim were swapping places, just watching each other through lines and seeing if we could pick up tips off each other. Unfortunately, the lap wasn't all that great as we received quite a few yellows throughout the lap. As with the Nürburgring, there's generally an instant somewhere around the track. So after carrying out a fair few laps over the weekend, I've got a good feel for how the car's reacting to all the modifications that we've put onto the car. Misha's back tomorrow, so we'll hand the car back over to him and see how he gets on for lap 2. But this time we'll make sure we've got a full tank of fuel. So as you see, some of the roads around the Nürburgring are just as good as the track. Now we've got fuel, sit back and enjoy a full send from Misha.
Okay, so yeah, fast forward actually to a few days later, because we did a lap, but because we had less than half a tank, or no, half a tank, halfway through the lap, the car decided to go in a limp mode, because apparently fuel surge is quite a big issue in
Seems
cars.
to be on these as well.
Yes,
it was on the FK8 and it's obviously carrying over.
So a thing to learn. Now, important thing, the car is a bit, well, the tires are a bit cold, the track is cold because it's early in the morning. So first half a lap, or like first quarter, we need to smooth. But I really enjoyed our first lap, and this second lap should be probably even better. Hopefully we can finish it. And the important thing, of course, give guys at Dream Automotive a follow on their YouTube, and also check out the website if you want to find out more about the car. It's easier, I guess, to comment on their channels, to ask them about the car rather than in my comments. Oh, something flew out the door pocket. Oh, fuck. Well.
coming to the end of our Nürburgring trip, and it's been a pretty successful one in gathering data and media for the FL5 development. We've been using a Garmin Catalyst for logging some of the data coming from the car, trying to improve our driving ourselves. Also using a Draghi and Hondata for logging some of the data that we actually want to analyse when we get back to Dream. Also the usuals of using GoPros and cameras just to catch media as the car's passing and from inside the car as well, to show you guys exactly what we've been up to. We were also able to get some amazing feedback from a driver who used this track day in, day out in a lot of different cars, and was very impressed with how our Civic was performing. Not only the Civic in general, but the setup that has gone into the car. I've been super impressed with the AD09 tyres. It's a tyre that I hadn't used previously. I've used the AD08, so sort of knew what to expect, but the tyres have worked absolutely great. When you look at the tyre across the board, it looks like they're wearing nice and evenly, albeit we've got a lot of camber in the car. Once we're leaning over into corners, those tyres are staying nice and flat and giving us tremendous amounts of grip. So it's been great to be launching our own Dream wheels here at the Nürburgring and track testing them. It's going to be a big selling point for us, knowing that we've put these wheels through some really hard laps and they've stood up to the test.
It's safe to say all the parts we fitted last week have been thoroughly tested this weekend, and we've gathered some great data so we can give some really good feedback now on what should and shouldn't be used on FK2s, FK8s and FL5s. The Nitron coilovers, albeit that they were a road-going kit, they were clearly very capable on track. On the drive over, we wound them down and used them on the soft setting, more carrying out motorway mileage, being a little bit more compliant, but once on track we turned them up a few clicks and they were clearly up to the job, soaking up the curbs like they weren't even there. Other components that we fitted last week were the Eibach rear anti-roll bar, which really helped us stay nice and flat across the rear end. The rigid collars were clearly doing their job, keeping the alignment nice and in check, and things like the Powerflex engine mount insert, just there keeping the engine nice and tight, gear changes nice and crisp, and all in all bringing together a package with a lot of small modifications when added up really improved the driving experience.
So once we're back to the UK, I'm looking forward to getting the car back out on track. We're at Players Classics at Goodwood next week, where we'll be using different wheels and tyres. We've got some Titan 7s wrapped up in some Nankang AR1s, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the car's then going to perform, knowing what I know about the Yokohamas and how the car's been handling this weekend as to what we do at Goodwood next week. So we saw a lot of other FK2s, FK8s and even a couple of FL5s while here at the Nürburgring, but one thing that really stood out was the colour of our car. It got so much attention when out on track and parked up in the car parks. We're really pleased with how the wraps came out. So whilst we were here for the weekend, we did manage to stop off at the Miltech Test Centre here at the Nürburgring. Not only just to give the car a check over, we want to obviously look at the exhaust, get some media at the centre, but give the car a good thorough check over before putting in some hard laps. We also, while we were there, managed to get a quick oil change done, so another tick in the box just in preparation. So Miltech exhaust has sounded phenomenal over the weekend. We kept the valves open most of the time and has gathered a lot of attention. We've got another video of that when we visited the test centre and a few of the bits that we've done there. There's also pop along to Olin's to just have a look around at the facilities, so stay tuned as there'll be another video coming on that one. Not only has the appearance of the car changed through fitting the wider wheels and lowering the ride height, but we've also got the APR front splitter on there, which has really given it a lot more aggression to the front end. So it's been great to have two FL5s here this weekend, as one is more in a stock format and then we've got the other one which has got a few parts on it, being our car. We've got our Dream intercooler and a full intake on the car, as well as Tim's car, which has got just the intake side of things, so it's good to get some of that comparison data against the two cars in the same conditions, same day, same weather, so that's going to be a good one to look at. Having done a lot of track time with our previous FK8, we were expecting our FL5 to be good, not quite as good as it has been. So the FL5 has been amazing on track. Having driven Tim's car for the first couple of laps, we got to grips with a standard platform, but then moving back into our car where we've got a lot more suspension work carried out, there were a lot of differences then starting to add up from those products. The nose tucks in real tight and the rear end is really stable through some of the high speed corners. Having been able to have a standard FL5 and a modified FL5, it's really been evident as to all our modifications coming together and aiding the new FL5 platform. You can see some of the grip through some of the high speed corners, even some of the Titan twisties where we were just able to push on a little bit harder than the standard car. So our brake upgrades and the suspensions really complemented each other. Coming into some of the tighter corners, hard on the brakes, you could really notice the stability in the car and still able to tuck in at a good speed, keeping grip through the corners. Comparing the two cars out on track, the tyres were a big difference here. Tim's car was on the standard tyres, the Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, whereas our car was on the Yokohama AD09s. It was clear to see towards the end of the lap, Tim's tyres were starting to overheat and it was just washing out through a few corners, having to slow the speed, whereas our AD09s were still able to push on further and further that we got into the lap and we didn't really suffer any heating issues with the tyres. about to head home, but before we do, let's have a quick final check over the car, see how the car's held up over the weekend. So the big AP brakes, they've definitely been doing the job for us. You can see that the Padgett RS29 pads have sort of baked on or bubbled up the paint that was on the pads. So I'd imagine these have been glowing red hot at one point, but they haven't lacked in performance throughout the whole weekend, whatever we have thrown at them. So while we're down the front, a quick look over the APR front splitter. I was adamant that we were going to destroy this through the carousel, but it's held up, it's done the job. It's been close at times, but it's all there in one piece and nice and secure. So the rear brakes, we're using the big Paragon 2-piece discs, and that uses the bracket to then pull the caliper further out. They're really helped. They've given us a lot of extra braking force. We're using OEM pads, and obviously with traction control turned off, we can see in the pad we've got loads of meat left on them. So the brakes have been working really well, not wearing the pads too heavily. Unfortunately, one bit of damage we did pick up on the way over here was a small stone chip just down to the bottom side of the corner of the screen, but over the weekend that has then slowly travelled all the way up across into the middle now. Not a lot we can do about it while we're here, but we'll definitely be getting a new windscreen in the car once we get back home. So with this beautiful weather we've been having over the weekend, you can really see the PPF film coming to life, especially now we've just given the car a quick clean. Intercooler looks like it's held up well over the weekend. Again, we've gathered a lot of data from the two cars, the standard car and the modified car, in comparisons of intake temperatures and if this core is working well for us. This again is our first prototype, so we may revise this once we've analysed some of the data back home. Let's have a quick look and see how the Yokohama's been holding up. So looking at the tyres itself, you can see that we're wearing quite evenly across the tyre. These have been really hot, some really hot laps from Misha as well, but proving themselves as a really good track day tyre for the FL5. So carbon tipped Miltech exhaust, again definitely doing its job and looking the part at home on the FL5. So safe to say, after numerous laps on the Nürburgring this weekend, we have definitely earned our badge. So as I mentioned before, the car has held up flawlessly over the weekend. We'll obviously, once we get back to Dream, strip the car down, all the brakes off, suspension off, and give them good thorough inspections, make sure everything is intact and doing its job it should do. Perhaps even visit Nitron and have a look at servicing the shocks, see if there's any improvements to make, if there's been any wear that's happened, and likewise with the brakes and other engine components, again, full strip down and analysis. Thanks again for taking the time to sit down and watch our video. It's great to be able to bring you footage like this from the likes of the Nürburgring and other tracks that we visit. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, give the video a like and leave us a comment below.